on, you guys? My name is Rayge, and we are back today to break down the best recommendations and T4s for the raid teams right now partaking in Incursion 2. We got additional confirmation that with Incursion 2 there's gonna be higher difficulty, so we definitely want to be managing, the best resources that we have on hand right now. But as well, if you guys are looking to get started in Incursion 2, this video is gonna be super helpful because it's gonna show you the minimum team levels that worked for myself when I got through it initially, and as well the upgraded T4s that I utilized to make sure that the team was functioning as intended. Now, I also want to point out, guys, obviously at the end of the day, I tried to make this as conclusive as I could, but I'm personally not engaged in the skill section. So in today's video, we are only going to be covering Mystic, Tech, Mutant, and Bio nodes, how I'm able to get through the majority of the nodes with the recommended character team levels and T4s. And again, if I have that information later on, if I'm working towards my Invaders team, I'll definitely keep you guys up to date. But thankfully, you can actually hit very, very close to 80%, even just getting those 4 sections done. So not a immediate cause for concern here. Now, to the meat and potatoes of my video, guys. Gear Tier 19 is officially available in 2 ways, right? In case you guys have missed wind of this. Gold store via direct purchase, and as well as the raid store rewards when you're going through the Incursion 2 raids. This is the only confirmed raid right now that does have this, and it's accumulating really well if you guys are even partaking in the minimum reward payout at 30%. It's going to slowly add up over time, which is absolutely meaningful. As well, they're also reworking the season leaderboard, so definitely going to be very, very important to rank higher on that to gain and accumulate these very expensive materials. Now, guys, for the 4 different sections, how I laid it out is we're going to start talking about each team, the team levels, character focuses, as well, breaking down why I recommend each T4 and why it's important. So first off here, I do also want to point out that Incursion Raid 2, again, it's the most important game mode right now in my honest opinion, especially if you guys want to work towards this gear. But thankfully, 30% and 60% alliance completion is very reasonable with even minimum raid level teams, and ideally it's going to help you save a ton of gold. It's going to be interesting to see how this gets elevated once we see the new difficulties come about, but I'll definitely be making update videos as well. So for every team and section I'm talking about today, all my raid guides will be linked below. So for your guys' reference, if you need to see the attack order and strategy, definitely check them out. Also as well, in my honest opinion, this is kind of how it fares. Mystic's pretty easy, Tech's not bad as well. Mutant section is easy to monitor depending on the team that you have. You can definitely get a job done as well with Def Seed, but I would recommend Extreme because they're part of the meta. The Bio section is moderate to hard depending on your team. I'm personally using Super Scroll, so I realize that may not be feasible for most folks. We'll go through that in a little bit of detail, but Hive Mind is the go-to. And then finally, like I said, typically you're in the top 100, you're doing skill. We're usually like the top 150, 160, but again, only some of us need to do the skill section, which is nice. Now, the Mystic minimum team. This is just my team right now currently in game is shy of 1 million plus, but this is actually less on screen because you don't actually need them fully built up in order to get through the nodes. So as long as you play them manually, which takes about 2 to 3 minutes each. The most important thing I want to point out is that, Val at Gear Tier 18 is very essential. The remaining characters can be Gear Tier 15 and 16 if you want to min-max. And again, my raid guide video is linked below if you guys want to see the attack order. How about T4 essentials? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about next. Everything that I've highlighted in green is, in my honest opinion, the most important T4s that you should be upgrading. Everything in the white option there is nice additional luxury that's going to make the nodes run smoother. So if you have limited T4s, the green is what I recommend, and it's actually the ones that I'm going to be talking about why, right? And the beautiful thing about this is that I've tested this out now for the last few months. That's why I know how important these abilities are, especially the T4 bonus that you get. With Val, the ultimate's going to give revives to the team. The special is going to allow for the ability block lasting 2 full turns, and the passive giving additional energy to the rest of the team. For that reason, by all means, upgrade Val and all her abilities if you can, because she's going to make each and every one of the nodes even easier. And as well, with her being the highest character on the team, it just makes the most sense. Loki, although you do use his special quite a bit, it's really just a nice bump up in damage. The only T4 I would recommend with Loki is the passive because he grants a lot of evasions and death proofs for the team, which is going to help with the survivability. Sylvie uses the ultimate the most common out of all the Bifrost members actually, especially when generating energy. Hence why I like the recommendation with the on spawn turn 1 rewind that she can actually utilize on the opposing team, and as well as flipping the buffs that they have on hand as well, which is pretty big, especially if they have taunt. This bypasses that. Otherwise, both Loki and Sylvie are really good in terms of their specials, giving additional damage and stuns, but again, it's more of a luxury. I would not actually recommend anything on beta rate build because he's more of a luxury character. He adds additional damage, additional AoE, kind of spamming damage, and as well as a stun, but they're not essentially essential when I'm going through the playthroughs anyways. I feel like Val is definitely the engine. Beta Ray build does soak up damage, which is nice. So if you have him a little higher to kind of soak that up, that'd be great, but not essential. And then lastly, I do think Teen Loki does provide a lot of the needed buffs to make sure that this team can survive a whipping, especially with the passive here, T4 recommendation granting the team with Safeguard, and as well the ultimate dealing work and damage, but as well adding immunity that ensures the buffs on this team actually stays put. For that reason, guys, this team is a pretty nice kind of standard here for T4s, but it only goes up from here when you're taking a look at some of the necessary T4s to perform and compete higher. Next up, we do have the tech notes here, respectively being Pegasus. Similar kind of formatting to Mystic, right? Kestrel is actually the character that you want to be the core and engine of the team, so by all means push her as high as you can. She's probably needed in Dark Dimension 7 anyway, so you're not going to be losing value there. Rest of the characters very similar. It can be gear tier 15 and 16, and manually it only takes about 2 to 3 minutes per node as well, as you'll see in my link video. But I do want to point out, if you guys have a beefier rescue, it's going to help with the survivability, because with mine playthroughs, when I go through, a couple of these allies do fall, but having the constant revive is what keeps my team going and granting continual energy. Now, with respect to this team's T4 recommendations, guys, you can see here, although Kestrel is the most meaningful and important member of the team, her T4 recommendations are not going to be the most immediate in terms of making sure that this team survives. It's going to be the sustainability and the massive crowd controlling aspects that you'll see. So characters like Rescue, where she's granting speed up and energy for herself when there is an enemy, when there is an ally death, is going to help giving her energy to revive her fallen allies, which is why the ult is absolutely a must-have to bring the team member back. Then we have Iron Man Infinity War, we have Ironheart Mark II, as well as Darkhawk, all utilizing kind of their synergies to grant each other energy, the massive AoE blinds, armor and disruption, and just having the blind and the stuns across the board with offense up is what's driving home how powerful the synergy of this team is. If you do have any luxury T4s, I do recommend using Kestrel's passive, because it does give her quite a bit of sustain and an additional uptick in damage. But otherwise, you can see the majority of the specials and as well as ultimates on these characters are going to be what's driving this team to be successful, especially in Incursion raids. Next up, we have the mutant nodes, and I'm not really going to spend too much time talking about Death Scene and Apocalypse, because I think this is kind of the go-to now, especially if you guys are planning to partake in Incursion 2 raids. It makes the most sense to build the newest team, which is the Extreme X-Men, and thankfully many of them are kind of farmable now, getting added into the game in some way, shape, or form, with the exception of Nightcrawler. Now, having said that, guys, it's interesting because this is the first team where there's going to be a couple key members that you do want to focus on, which is Gambit and Nightcrawler. And probably one of them is going to be needed for Dark Dimension 7, hence why I added that in. But the remainder of the team is likely going to be around gear tier 16 or 17, depending on the difficulty that you're planning to partake in. And again, typically manual play takes about 3 to 4 minutes. It does take longer because you do need to understand the dynamic of the strategy involved in these nodes. From a T4 perspective, pretty well balanced across the board, and I'll just go from left to right, because I think each and every one of these characters do a specific they have a main responsibility on the team, and you got to make sure they're sticking with it. I also was being very mindful of the key specials and ultimates that I've been using when I'm using these characters in the playthrough. So Cyclops, his passive additionally gives a lot of focus. I think it's really important to use this one, but as well, it grants him that extra 40 charges max threshold, right? If you don't have this, he's not going to be doing insane amount of damage with his ultimate, so that's a must-have. His ultimate is also the one that clears the revive. So in node 1 for the mutant section, we're up against Dormammu that grants revives on the enemy team. This essentially bypasses that, which is why it's very, very important to have Cyclops on this team. Nightcrawler, his passive granting slow immunity to the team, so slows are never going to impact his team, as well granting himself charges immediately, which is going to help funnel into the special, essentially granting the evasion to any kind of injured allies, but as well giving him more of that technical proficiency there. Very important, especially when you're thinking about the other strong abilities that he has with his ultimate and his basic. But again, those are more luxuries in my honest opinion, hence why I have them commented there. With Sunspot, respectively, he's seen as the battery of the team, right? He does provide a lot of offense down and damage, but really, he's going to be spawning the team with energy, and his ultimate also granting more energy, as well as some devastating debuffs that I would highly recommend on building. I think Forge is probably You know, he should be the most important character because he allows the team to kind of survive with the revive and so forth. But it's really Nightcrawler, Gambit, and Forge that are that three-piece that makes this team whole. He's spawning with defense up for natural protection, granting evasion, and the safeguard on the team. But as well, like I said, the revive is absolutely immense here. But thankfully, you don't need the T4 as ult for the revive. But granting the evasion and safeguarding ensures this team has their buffs continually, you know, maintained. And then lastly, I think Gambit's definitely going to be the most important or second most important character on this team. He just does a lot of things with his passive attacks. Even his passive right there, granting that permanent HP boost as well as natural stealths to the team helps immensely with the survivability, especially given how you know, well built these mutant nodes are. As well, his ultimate is super devastating, flipping all the positives as well as adding disruption on top of it. Just cripples a team when you can activate that right before a devastating Cyclops ultimate. Again, my rate guide video link below, guys, if you need to see the attack order. It's very important. These nodes are the ones that really showcase if you understand what's going on with the battles and the enemies that you're up against. But this is a really super fun team if you know how to utilize them. And then last but not least, guys, I just put it all together with the bio notes here for my last one here, just because I am using Super Scroll and these 4 right now. They do exceptionally well. I can get through the first 2 nodes, and I do have to do like a setup for the last and final node. So we're not going to talk about Super Scroll too much because he's the best character in the game. Upgrade everything you can, but with respect to Hive Mind themselves, you know, Carnage is passive is extremely important for the turn meter rewind, as well as adding additional crit damage to the rest of the team. We got Venom, who's arguably probably the second most important if we don't have Red Goblin here, and him passively adding speed and crit percentage, as well as his basic actually giving him more turn meter as well, which is absolutely immense, right? He's got some strong ultimates and specials, but again, I don't think they're essential before you get through this list first. Void Knight, upgrade everything. My goodness, he's doing a bit of everything. Spawning with energy, ability block to the entire mass enemies that we're up against, and stealing an immense amount of energy from opposing enemies that are a threat, right? So a better version of the ability block. Lastly, Gwenom being the battery of this team. I think all of her abilities actually should be T4, but if you had to choose some, you know, obviously she grants the evasion through the allies for additional protection. Her ult adds additional barrier, but as well as dealing AoE damage. Absolutely immense, granting buffs as well. And then lastly, her special, granting that +2 stun to an enemy, which is pretty pivotal when you can combo that up between an enemy that you believe is going to wipe someone on your side. So I mean, pretty immense, guys. This Hive Mind team relies a lot on their T4s, but again, I do plan on making an update to this as well once I have Red Goblin ready to go here with the 5-piece. So there you guys have it. In my honest opinion, these are some respective team levels that you can use, and thankfully, like I said, most of these screenshots here that I have were when I was able to get through at the minimum, and now obviously my characters are stronger, but I just wanted to bring this to your guys' attention so that way you can have something to reference. Please share this around because I want you guys to save resources as well if you can min-max the best you can. And at the end of the day, these are, in my honest opinion, the best T4s to get through and start working your way up towards Incursion 2 and earning those really coveted and important Gear Tier 19 resources. Thank you for your time as always, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.